The gavel came down like a crack of bone against dry earth. Outside, wind rustled the dead cottonwood tree like a woman weeping through her teeth, but inside the courthouse, it was still. Too still. She stood alone before them, belly full, wrists bound. No lawyer, no kin, no name given. Just a pregnant black woman, barefoot, dust-caked, and staring down a line of pale men who'd already decided what she was. The judge's eyes never blinked. Pale and sunken like stones left too long in a riverbed, they studied her like she was a riddle or a threat. Or both. His voice was flat when he read the charge, murder of a deputy in the line of duty. He said the words like they were church scripture, memorized, unfeeling, final.
She didn't speak.
Didn't twitch. Her back was straight, her dress torn at the hem, soaked through with old sweat and something darker near the collarbone. Her hair, thick and coiled, was pulled back tight with a strip of frayed red cloth. Not decorative, functional. Everything about her said survival, not presentation. The room smelled of hot timber and old blood. Jurymen shifted in their chairs, the creak of boots on floorboards louder than breath. One scratched at a scab beneath his collar. Another chewed a toothpick until it splintered between his molars. They weren't here to deliberate. They were here to wait for the sun to drop low enough to justify the hanging. The sheriff leaned against the wall, arms crossed, boots muddy. He watched her like she was a rabid animal behind glass, half pity, half readiness to draw. A long scar cut from his temple down to the corner of his jaw. He'd earned it in the war, folks said. Or from a woman, others whispered. They said she ambushed the deputy, shot him in the throat, then kept shooting till the hammer clicked dry. They said he never even drew. That she dragged his body to the creek and left it face up, eyes still open to the sky like he was waiting for something holy to come take him. No one said what the deputy was doing in her cabin before dawn. No one asked why her lip was split and her ankle swollen. Justice wasn't blind here. It just looked away when it needed to. Her hands rested on the curve of her belly. It rose and fell in time with her breath. She stared forward, calm. The calm of someone who had already died once and found no reason to beg the second time. From the back row, a voice cut through the hush like a whip. She even got a name? The judge ignored the question. She's never spoken, the sheriff said instead. Not since we dragged her in. She spoke to the priest. A woman murmured. Young. Maybe 20. Freckled hands clutching a small tin cup of water. The sheriff snorted. Priests don't count. She ain't confessed. The judge adjusted his collar, the yellowed lace scratching his neck. No name, no kin, no story. All we got is a body and a bullet, and a woman who don't deny it. The jury was told to reach a verdict by sundown. That gave them 4 hours. But everyone knew they wouldn't need it. After the court recessed, she was taken back to the holding cell, a closet built of rusted bars and bad intentions. The chains around her ankles dragged with every step, iron scraping would like a dirge. She winced once when she sat, more from the baby shifting than the pain in her legs. The young woman brought her water again. She knelt just outside the bars, close enough for the prisoner to smell lavender soap on her hands. You don't have to be silent, she said softly. They already hate you. Might as well speak. The pregnant woman looked at her. Not with gratitude or warmth. Just tiredness, heavy as stone. They don't want truth, she said at last. Her voice was like smoke, low, hoarse, full of things burned away. They want peace of mind. The girl blinked, startled that she'd spoken at all. Then she nodded, slowly, and stood. You got someone coming for you? The woman tilted her head toward the window. Beyond it, the desert shimmered in the heat. No one comes for folks like me. When the bell rang 3 times, the courtroom refilled. Jurymen returned with dust on their trousers and whiskey on their breath. The judge took his seat with the grim calm of a man waiting for his coffee to cool. The woman was led back to the stand. Her feet dragged now, 1 step slower than before. The sheriff read the verdict.
Guilty.
A murmur swept the room, more relief than satisfaction. Something in their world was put back in order. The judge cleared his throat. Sentence to be carried out at dawn. hanging. Body to be buried at town's discretion. The woman didn't flinch. Then came the sound. Hoofbeats. Not casual. Not uncertain. A rhythm of purpose.
Slow.
Heavy. Final. The saloon doors creaked open as the courthouse's main doors swung inward. And there he stood. Dust rose off his coat like steam from a train. His hat sat low, shadowing his eyes. Around his waist, a long black gun belt, the leather worn to ghost silver at the edges. Boots crusted with road salt. And a look that made everyone in that room remember something they'd done wrong once. He stepped forward. One boot, then the next. No hand on his gun. No greeting. He looked at her, and for the first time, she looked back. Gasps, murmurs, curses low and bitten off. Then he spoke. That woman's my wife. Dead silence. No one moved. Even the air held its breath. The judge stood slowly, one hand resting near the Bible, the other drifting toward the gavel. I don't believe I caught your name, mister. You wouldn't, he replied, not taking his eyes off her. Ain't one worth repeating. She ain't claimed no husband. You showing up don't change. It changes everything, he said. Quiet.
Sure.
Like it was already done. Someone in the back whispered his name, but not loud enough to be sure. Just loud enough to spread. She closed her eyes for half a heartbeat. When she opened them, there was heat in her chest, fury wrapped in something older. Not relief. Not fear. Recognition. The judge licked his lips. You'll need proof. Witness.
Deed. Vows something.
The man stepped forward again. All I need is her word. But she said nothing. Just looked at him like he was a fire she thought long gone out, come roaring back through dry timber. The judge frowned. Then we're done here. Sentence stands. The man's fingers brushed the edge of his coat. Not to draw. Just to remind the room he could. The sheriff tensed. The chains at her ankles clinked softly as she shifted. No one fired. No one shouted. But a storm had entered the room. And it wasn't leaving quietly. The dust hadn't settled when he stepped from the doorway. Heat shimmered off the wooden planks beneath his boots, and for a moment, the townsfolk couldn't tell if he was real or something conjured up from the land's old grudges. He stood as if the world owed him stillness. Broad-shouldered, weather-worn, coat flapping in the wind like torn sailcloth on a dying ship. His hand rested casually near his holster, but no one mistook it for anything less than a warning. The sheriff stepped forward first, his boots landing hard to mask hesitation. You say she's your wife. That true, or just a story you think might save her? The gunslinger's eyes, flint dark and unreadable, didn't leave the woman's. Ain't no story. And if it is, I'm the one who wrote it. Behind him, the air thickened. The judge stood like he might speak, but said nothing. The jurymen shifted uncomfortably, caught between protocol and the scent of blood waiting to be spilled. The woman's eyes stayed on the man. Not soft. Not wide. Just tired, with that same storm-heavy stillness she carried into every room. I didn't ask you to come, she said. You didn't have to, he answered. His voice wasn't gravel, wasn't silk. It was the sound of someone who'd spent years talking to silence and learned not to expect much back. People who knew him by reputation whispered names. Some wrong, some half-right, but none dared say them too loud. The sheriff gestured toward the courthouse. You got no writ, no badge, no place here. She's been tried and judged. The gunslinger turned slowly, taking in the crowd. A trial with no defense and no truth ain't judgment. It's theater. He looked back to the woman. Tell them. Just say it. Her jaw tightened. You think claiming me makes this right?
No, he said.
But it makes it mine. That landed hard. Something in her posture faltered. Not from weakness, but recognition. She didn't soften, but her eyes dipped to the floor, then back up to meet his. The chains at her ankles glinted in the low sun like shackles in a museum, tokens of some empire long gone but never buried. The judge raised his voice. You are disrupting a legal execution.
This is the law, sir.
She has been judged. And I've judged the law wanting. the gunslinger said low. She comes with me. A deputy moved to draw. The air thickened to gunpowder. The gunslinger didn't reach for his revolver. He just looked at the deputy, and in that glance was a history too long to argue with. The deputy faltered. The revolver stayed in its holster. The judge slammed the gavel. Enough. No one moved. He turned to the woman. Will you claim him? His voice cracked with heat and sweat. A name, a bond, something to stop what's coming. She looked at the man, then the crowd, then the horizon. Her voice was quiet but sharp. You don't get to claim me like I'm land or cattle. I'm not, he said. I'm offering shelter. She studied him a long time. Then she nodded once. Small, like a knot tied tight in the belly.
Fine, she said.
He's my husband. The word burned in the room. The judge's face twitched. Then you'll both be judged. They put her back in her cell. He didn't argue. Just sat on the bench outside, arms folded, eyes on the steel. Night came quickly. The courthouse emptied out, though no one really left. They just stepped into saloons and porches, whispering into their drinks. The sheriff paced like a man listening for a sound he didn't want to hear. Thunder rolled low and distant across the plains. In the cell, she sat with her back to the bars, fingers resting on the curve of her belly. You're late, she said without turning. I know. You shouldn't have come. I know that too. Outside, he leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. I heard the story in Santa Fe. Didn't believe it. Then I heard it again in Pecos. This time it had a name I recognized. You think naming me changes what I did? No, he said. But it changes what I'll do about it. She stood slowly, face lit by the flickering lantern. Her eyes looked bruised from lack of sleep. Her dress clung to her shoulders, soaked in desert sweat. You should have stayed gone. You left easy enough. I stayed gone because I thought you were safer without me. You were wrong. They sat in silence. Only the wind moved, curling under doors and through floorboards like a dog sniffing for blood. She stepped closer to the bars. Why now? Because I made a mistake once, he said. And I don't intend to make another. She laughed, bitter and short. You think showing up in time to bury me makes up for what you missed? I didn't come to bury you. His voice cracked then, a fault line forming across hard ground. I came to stand between you and whatever's left of the fire. A long silence stretched between them, filled with memory. A campfire years ago, her head on his shoulder, the smell of pine smoke, gunpowder on his breath. He left her then, not with anger, not with cruelty, but with a silence he thought would keep her safe. It hadn't. She looked down at her belly. It's not yours. I figured. She stepped even closer. It was his, she whispered. The deputy. He didn't move, didn't blink. Then you were right to kill him, he said. Her lips parted, the words caught between breathing and screaming. I didn't come to forgive or judge, he continued. I came because I won't let them take you. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. The sheriff. He stopped at the bars and looked at the two of them, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. You got till morning, he said. Then the sentence is carried out. Wife or not. Not if she ain't here, the gunslinger said. The sheriff didn't reply. Just walked away, the sound of his spurs vanishing into night. The woman turned back toward the cot. Her knees bent slower now, the weight inside her pulling heavy. She winced as she lowered herself. He stayed sitting outside, silent, watching. At the edge of town, the wind changed. It came in faster, colder. A storm gathering from far off, dragging its claws across the desert, whispering promises into the dry, cracked earth. Inside the cell, she closed her eyes. Outside he stood, waiting, planning, not praying. He didn't do that anymore. But in the silence, in the stillness before dawn, he thought one thought, over and over again. Let me be in time. The lantern burned low. Outside, the sky bruised from gray to indigo, clouds dragging like torn canvas across the moon. The town slept with one eye open. Too many guns for comfort, Too much history for rest. Wind rolled down the hills in waves, curling beneath shutters, whispering down chimneys like a ghost calling for witness. Inside the jailhouse, she didn't sleep. Her eyes tracked the boards overhead, counting the cracks, tracing the grain like road maps that never led home. Every few breaths, she shifted, hand braced to her back, hips aching from the weight of the child and the stone-cold cot. The gunslinger hadn't moved from the bench. His hat was tipped forward, but he wasn't resting. Just listening. Thinking. Every creak in the floor, every gust of wind, he measured it. Like a man who'd run from too many fights to mistake peace for safety. "You never asked," she said, voice just above the hush. "What happened?" He sat up slowly, the leather of his coat groaning like an old saddle. "Didn't reckon I had the right." "You don't, but I'll tell you anyway." She rubbed her thumb along the steel chain cuffed to her wrist. "He came just after first frost. Said he was checking the mail routes, but he always rode in early. Always alone. First time, I fed him. That was my mistake." The man nodded, slow and grim.
He didn't speak.
Second time he stayed too long. Started asking questions he thought he already had the answers to.
About you.
About the war. About whether I was the kind of woman who belonged out here. A pause. Third time I said no.
He didn't like that.
Her voice didn't shake, but it thickened, like boots sinking into mud. "I shot him while he was lacing up his boots. Not while he was hurting me." That part was over. The gunslinger looked down at his hands. They were shaking. She watched him. "You can put your sorrow away. I didn't kill him out of rage. I killed him because I wanted to live." He nodded again, slower this time. "I buried the first bullet in his throat. The rest were insurance." He didn't scream. Just dropped like someone yanked his bones out. "Did he see your face?" he asked. He looked surprised. Like he didn't think I could do it. Another gust of wind rattled the shutters. Far off, a dog barked once, then fell quiet. "You waited 3 years to come back," she said. He answered without pride. "I didn't want to die with your name on my conscience. And now I die to keep it off theirs."
She didn't speak.
But her eyes, dark, full, unflinching, settled on him like a sentence already passed. Not hateful, just final. A key turned in the front door. The sheriff stepped inside, hand resting on his revolver. His face looked different in the lamplight, older, thinner, like something had been carved out of him in the last hour. "You should both listen," he said. "There's talk at the saloon. 4 of the jurymen are getting Nancy. Some don't like your story. Others don't like the idea of you riding out with her." "She's not staying," the gunslinger said. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "You planning something?" "I plan to walk out of here with my wife." The sheriff shook his head. "That's not a plan. That's a death wish. She killed a man who meant her harm. You think that matters to men with torches in their hands?" The sheriff leaned forward, voice tightening. "They'll come before dawn, rope in hand, and they'll say it's justice, but what they really want is closure." Silence stretched. Then the sheriff added quietly, "I can give you a 10-minute head start. No more." The woman rose slowly, holding her belly as she stood. "Why help us?" The sheriff looked down at his boots. "Because I remember the way she walked into town. Bleeding. Barefoot. Because I've got a daughter who looks like her. And because there's blood on this land that won't wash off, but sometimes you can cover it with something better." The key turned in the cell lock. The door creaked open. She stepped out slow, one hand clutching the iron bars for balance. The gunslinger reached to steady her. She didn't stop him. "Out the back," the sheriff said. "Ride hard and don't stop. Not at the ridge. Not at the river. Not till the sun's behind you and no one's following." They nodded once. The woman turned at the threshold. "They'll say you let a killer go." "I did," the sheriff said. "But not the wrong one." Outside, the cold bit deeper. The sky had gone from bruised to black. The horse waited behind the stable, saddled, silent. As they approached, the gunslinger helped her into the saddle, then climbed behind her. One hand on the reins, the other wrapped around her waist. They didn't speak, but something passed between them, an old thread tugged taut again. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something stronger than rage and softer than grief. A will to move forward. Together. The town behind them creaked with sleeping houses. But the wind whispered of movement, boots, fire, hammers tapping metal. As they rode out, hooves pounding low and fast across cracked earth, a light flared in the window of the saloon. Someone had noticed. Back inside the jailhouse, the sheriff stood alone. He poured a finger of whiskey into a tin cup and watched the door, waiting for the knock that would start the storm. But out there, out beyond the ridge, where the land curled up like a wave ready to break, two riders disappeared into shadow. And somewhere deep in the silence, a heartbeat quickened. Hers. As if the child inside knew something had changed. The past still hunted them. But for the first time, the future had opened its eyes. The moon fled west as dawn threatened the rim of the earth, washing the desert in bruised light. They rode without speaking. The woman pressed against him, her breath short and sharp with every jolt. The child inside her shifted like thunder rolling far off. The horse was lathered with sweat, its flanks streaked with dust. Behind them, the world narrowed into hoofbeats and vengeance. They crested a low ridge, and he slowed, eyes sweeping the open land. Far ahead, the maces rose in stacked silhouettes. He pointed. We make it to Red Hollow by nightfall. We've got a chance. There's a woman there, healer, maybe an outlaw still, but kind. She'll hide us. The woman shifted in the saddle, her voice ragged. I'm not sure I have till nightfall.
You do, he said.
She didn't argue, but her hands dug into the saddle horn, knuckles bone-white. He felt it, beneath his palm on her belly, the tautness of pain building like a rope drawn tight. It was coming faster now, the child, and neither of them said it out loud. Behind them, a hawk cried. Below, a distant plume of dust rose in the valley, a posse, or worse. The land offered no cover, just miles of cracked rock and silent scrub. We'll cut down through Ghost Bend, he said, turning the reins. Fast water, slippery rocks. They'll slow if they've got wagons. The trail narrowed, slick with dew and rimmed by jagged shale. The horse stumbled once, righted itself, and kept on. The woman's breaths came sharp and fast now. We have to stop, she gasped. Just for a moment. We can't. I can't, she cried out, a bolt of pain breaking her voice in two. He halted. Jump down. Hold on. He helped her slide off the saddle, her boots hitting rock like thunder. She leaned against a boulder, both arms wrapped around her belly. The sky was bleeding light now, pinks turning to gold. No time. But still, he knelt beside her, fingers at her pulse, eyes searching hers. I won't let them take you, he said. She grabbed his collar. It's not them I'm afraid of. It's dying with this child inside. You're not dying, he said. You hear me? Tears welled in her eyes, but none fell. You don't get to say that. He stood, pacing. The river gurgled nearby, cold and clean. Birds stirred in the brush. Somewhere behind, a rider called out, distant, but drawing closer. He turned back to her, eyes like broken flint. We have to keep moving, he said. Or fight. Fight, she said, almost laughing. You against 10 men? I've killed more for less. Her gaze steadied. Then don't fight for me. Fight for what's next. She clutched her side, the pain coming again, bending her low. The baby's coming. He looked around. No shelter. No roof. Only stone and wind and time running dry. He tied the horse, grabbed the blanket from the saddle roll, and knelt beside her. Then here's where we make our stand. Her scream split the hush of morning. Birds burst skyward. Somewhere down the trail, voices rose in alarm. He worked fast. Water boiled on a fire no one had time for, cloth torn from his shirt, hands shaking but steady. She bled. She bit down on leather to keep from breaking her teeth. Time vanished. The sun rose higher, cruel and golden. And then the child came. A girl. Small, wet, fierce. He wrapped her in the blanket, pressed her to her mother's chest. The woman cradled her with a look he'd never seen on her face before, tender and stunned, as if holding both heaven and fire in her arms. Then came the voices again. Closer. The posse had found the horse's tracks. He stood, blood on his hands, revolver drawn. Loaded. 6 bullets. That's all the world had left for him. She looked up at him from the rock, still panting. Go.
No.
You'll die. I die, they take you. I live, they run. Her voice cracked. Then you better live. He kissed her forehead, quick and rough, and turned to the trail. He stepped into the clearing like a man born of dust and hard choices. His shadows stretched long behind him. The wind died. Even the river seemed to pause. They came fast, 5 men on horseback, rifles raised. The first pulled up short, spotting him. Move, the rider barked. We want the girl, not you. You'll get her over my corpse, the gunslinger replied. Don't test us. I've been tested, he said, and fired first. The shot rang out like judgment. One rider tumbled sideways off his mount, screaming. Chaos broke. Horses reared. Rifles cracked. Dust rose like a shroud. He moved like a ghost, low, fast, deadly. Another rider fell, chest opened wide. A third shot missed him by inches, taking bark off a tree. He rolled behind a boulder, returned fire, caught the shooter in the throat. The last 2 men hesitated, seeing what was left of their company. Blood soaked the trail. Smoke curled above the sagebrush. Run, the gunslinger said, voice low and final. Before I remember how many sins I haven't paid for. They turned and rode. He stood there, chest heaving, revolver smoking. His coat was torn, shoulder grazed and bleeding. But he was alive. He staggered back to her. She was awake, clutching the child. You made it. He nodded, dropped beside her, the adrenaline wearing off like a tide. You name her yet? He asked. She smiled faint. Not yet. He leaned in, brushing a hand across the child's cheek. She's strong. Came into the world with fire. She'll need it. He looked out across the land, now quiet again. The posse wouldn't come back. Not today. We head to Red Hollow tonight, he said. We'll rest here, then ride. The woman leaned against him, closing her eyes. You think we'll make it? He looked down at the child, so small, so loud with life. We already did. And for the first time in a long while, he believed it.